When you hear the term acid rain, you probably think of something along the lines of toxic chemicals falling from the sky. That's not exactly it, though. Acid rain is precipitation, like rain or snow, that has a high acid concentration from unnatural amounts of chemicals like carbon dioxide, sulfuric acid, and nitrate that get into the atmosphere. The biggest sources of these chemicals, according to National Geographic, are coal burning power plants, factories, and automobiles. When these chemicals get into the air, they go into the cloud's water and it increases in acidity. When a water solute increases in acidity, it becomes lower on the pH scale. pH stands for potential of hydrogen and measures the acidity of a substance. So the lower the pH scale, the higher the acidity. A 7 is considered neutral, and acid rain is a 4. That's almost double the neutral rate. When acid rain falls, it ends up in lakes, rivers, and in the soil. This causes a lot of plants and animals to be badly affected. Here's Miss Creviston, a biology teacher at Hoover High School that is aware of the effects of acid rain on animals.
So the effect of acid rain on living organisms is going to be different depending on whether it's a terrestrial organism, something on the land, or something that lives in the water. So if it's a land animal, there might not be directly affected by the acid rain itself, but what's going to happen is the plants in the area that organism lives are definitely going to be affected by the acid rain. So as the rain hits the plant, it's going to have an effect on the waxy covering of the plant. It's going to break that down, and eventually the plant could potentially die. Also, if the soil becomes too acidic, that will also end up killing the plant off because the ground will essentially become sterilized. And so an organism that relies upon that plant for food then is not going to have the nutrients that it needs, and you're going to have a cascade effect up the food chain because the producers, all the plants, have died off. Now, in an aquatic ecosystem, you're going to have runoff from the area where the acid rain has fallen, or you might have the acid rain falling directly into a body of water, a lake, a pond, a river, or something like that. And so now you're going to have the water is going to become more and more acidic. So most water, fresh water, has a pH of about 6.5 to could be even fairly basic up to maybe about 8 or so. If the pH drops down low enough, it's going to start to kill off plant life and going to kill off animal life in the pond, so fish, microorganisms like copepods and things like that. If the pH were to drop too low, so maybe something less than like a 5.0 on the pH scale, it could essentially sterilize the lake and kill everything in it and essentially make it a dead lake.
Acid rain does not physically affect humans, but, as Ms. Creviston had explained, acid rain affects both animals and plants in the water and on land by killing their resources in their natural environment. The animals themselves can also get sick from too low a pH level. For example, amphibian eggs die from a high acid rate. According to Water Encyclopedia, a number of studies have shown that acidification of fresh water via acid rain, acid snowmelt, or other modes of pollution are harmful to amphibian growth and development. Frogs have a critical pH level of a 4, so when acid rain makes these habitats acidic, they become sick and will die if they continue to be exposed to such acidity. A critical pH level is the amount of acidity an animal can handle without being badly affected. And frogs are more important than you may think. Frogs and other amphibians, such as salamanders and newts, are important to the food chain. Many animals, such as snakes, birds, and others, rely on them to eat. So with less frogs being born and more of them dying, if they are born, there is less food for these many other animals. Trees and forests are also greatly affected by acid rain, and a high acidic concentration can kill off soil, making it so nothing can grow there. And the trees, plants, and animals that live there will die. If we were to stop the high amount of carbon dioxide, sulfuric acid, nitrate, and other chemicals from getting into the atmosphere, the amount of acid rain would decrease. There was an act that was passed in the 1970s that decreased the amount of carbon dioxide being put into the air by factories. It was called the Clean Air Act, and states that under the Clean Air Act, the Environmental Protection Agency is required to regulate emission of pollutants that endanger public health and welfare. Some people believe that since we've made this act, acid rain is no longer a problem. Acid rain is still an issue. Though the amount of chemicals that go into the air have gone down by 40% since the act, but it's still an issue. A 2013 report from the Government Accountability Office said that at the time, 88% of the Great Lakes were impaired by acid rain. That's 43 years after the initial release of the act, and it is still that big of an issue. If we can completely cut off the amount of fossil fuels from cars or factories and switch to an electric source of power, instead we would be so much better off. So please, take this into consideration and use solar or electric vehicles, sign clean air petitions, and help our planet.